welcome everybody. I am your host of Real to Real Talk, Paul Britton, podcast where I talk about movies. Basically, do a lot of movie reviews. So that's what we're here to do today. We had first let's just really quick box office. Second weekend release of Inside Out 2, and it got over 100 million again, which is a very tiny 30%, like 34% drop in total revenue for Inside Out 2, which is super exciting for Inside Out 2. Bad news for anything that was trying to be released this weekend. The new movies didn't register very deep, but also neither one of them were super big blockbuster stuff. Actually, neither one of them would be movies that I would be like, oh yeah, that's a summer release. But hey, they got summer release dates, so we're here to talk about them. The first one is actually Oscar fodder. It's the Bikeriders, starring Austin Butler and Jodie Comer. Not to mention, of course, Tom Hardy is in this one as well. If you've seen the trailer, you get to see Tom Hardy doing his latest fun accent. This is, like I said, this is Oscar fodder. This one is just a showcase of mega acting chops. That's what this movie is about. This movie is about, hey, let's go do some badass acting. And here we are with this, this really interesting character study about a writing gang. Going to be very specific, a writing gang that was started by Tom Hardy's character in Chicago in the Midwest, and it's based off of I'll call it a coffee table book. It's not technically a coffee table book, but a photo book, a photo essay book, which was bolstered with some snippets from interviews that was written like back in the mid 70s. And it's basically the story of the making of the book, loosely. This is one that I'm going to just go ahead and call non-narrative. It's very much like almost like skits, if you will, or a composite movie where Jodie Comer is a woman who is pretty straight-laced until a friend of hers brings her to this biker bar, and she meets and falls in love with Austin Butler. And it's the acting is so good. Like everybody in this movie is so good. It's also got Michael Shannon in it, who, come on, he's good in everything, and a whole bunch of other guys that you just would like. I'm not entirely sure who that is, but they're fantastic. The one other person that I definitely recognized was Michael Feist, who was earlier in the year. He was in the movie The Challengers, which I really liked, and he was really good in that. He's really good in this. Everybody is absolutely just cooking, throwing fastballs in this. It's written and directed by Mike Nichols, who has previously made he's known for making smaller movies. He made Loving, which is this story about the couple that got all of the laws in the United States that forbid interracial marriage, got those taken off the books. He made Mud. He made Midnight Special. So these are movies. These are, none of those are like, oh, it's a blockbuster. He doesn't do blockbusters. He does these sort of contemplative, smaller message or think pieces, and this is, this falls right in line with that. I don't know what to do for this movie other than say, you have to go see it. It's so captivating. What happens on the screen is not something where you're going to remember the order of everything that you see happen, because the order of the things that happen, although it's relatively chronological order, is immaterial. What you're going to remember is these characters and and the interrelationships that they have, and Jodie Comer and Tom Hardy, basically fighting for Austin Butler's attention. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, is that Austin Butler plays this guy who's just an absolutely magnetic personality who wants no one to pay attention to him, and everybody wants him to pay attention to them. And just how that plays out when one of the people is the person's wife and the other person is basically like a father figure, just somebody who has put together a motorcycle, a riding gang, not to be confused with a racing gang, apparently, a riding gang that, that literally just kind of intimidate people wherever they go, whether it be through active intimidation or just passively passing through. And it's really interesting to see how the characters are impacted by the changes in time, as it goes from the inception of the group in the early to mid 60s until things start getting out of hand, as the newer members of the group are these sort of like lost souls that are coming back from Vietnam, and how that really impacts, the gang, which then impacts this sort of relationship triangle. It's just an absolutely fascinating movie. I genuinely, I loved it. I loved it. I hope people go see it. It's not something that you're probably vaguely aware of it. It's out in theaters now. Go check it out after you have seen Inside Out 2. This one here at Real to Real Talk, we do tacos instead of stars. And if we feel like something needs more than just a full taco, we add guac to it, because nobody eats half a fucking taco. And this one's going to get 4 tacos plus guac from me. Just delicious. Fantastic. Again, I cannot possibly recommend it enough. The other 2 movies I saw this weekend, they're interesting. So the first one, we have Russell Crowe popping up in another Exorcism movie, and this one actually is called just The Exorcism. I'm going to start by explaining the conceit of the movie. Russell Crowe is an actor, an actor in recovery, drugs and alcohol, and from a tragedy in his life where his wife passed away, and he's trying to make amends with his daughter and rebuild his relationship with his daughter, while also trying to rebuild his acting career. And he gets attached to play the lead role, in a new Exorcism movie. And it's, although they never come out and say it, they imply it, and it's sort of like an inside haha joke that it's roughly a remake of The Exorcist. So Russell Crowe is starring in a remake of The Exorcist. We know it's a remake of The Exorcist because, one, they call it the Georgetown Project, and The Exorcist takes place in the Georgetown sector of Washington, D.C. And 2, because when Russell Crowe is kind of studying for the role, to audition for the role, his daughter makes a joke of, they're really going to remake that movie. And they don't actually come out and say The Exorcist. It's just like that movie. And it's like, ha ha ha, they're remaking The Exorcist. The problem this time is that a demon is attached to the production, and is inflicting horribleness to whoever plays the Father Karras role from The Exorcist. And sure enough, Russell Crowe has landed the Father Karras role. I'm highly amused by the conceit of this movie. I wish this movie were more amused with the conceit of this movie. And I think that there is a way to take seriously the horror, scary, demon possession aspects of the movie, while also having fun with the we're remaking The Exorcist parts of the movie. They don't try to do the second part. They don't try to have fun with the idea that they're making they're filming a movie that is a remake of The Exorcist. They do take seriously the possession stuff, but there's really one spectacular possession scene, and then like the climactic scene isn't as good as that scene. And it also features Niall, the actor who plays Niles Crane in Frasier, as sort of an actual priest who is being playing the technical advisor on the movie. I I really wanted to genuinely like this movie a lot. Yeah, I've said before, exorcisms are my favorite genre of movie. The wonderful thing about the last year's Russell Crowe exorcism movie, the Pope's Exorcist, was that it had a lot of fun with the fact that it had Russell Crowe. This movie doesn't try to have a lot of fun. The character that Russell Crowe plays is pretty dark going in, and only gets darker as the demon possession gets more and more serious. There's a moment in the movie where it's the climax where Russell Crowe is confronting the daughter, his daughter, the girl who is playing the Reagan character in the movie, and the Niles Crane character, and it's building and it's building. And what I would have loved to have seen was during that scene, like where we think this is really going on, a moment where you hear the director say cut, 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 and then they go back. And they're like, okay, this is what I'm looking for from this scene. And then they pause, and then they go back in and redo it. And then there just was an opportunity to have a lot of fun with the movie and they have zero fun with the movie and it's very serious, and it's a shame. And it ultimately, unfortunately, this is not, it's just not a super fun experience to watch, and the possession stuff's only okay. I'm not mad that I saw it. I just don't know that I would ever watch it again. So I'm going to tacos plus guac. That's my standard. I didn't hate the movie. I didn't dislike the movie. I just don't know that I would ever watch it again rating. And so that's where I land. The last movie is the biggest surprise of them all, just because it stars Jessica Alba as an action movie star. I wasn't expecting this, and I went in totally blind to Netflix's trigger warning. And about 10 minutes into the movie, I'm like, I feel like this movie is telling me I should know who this actress is, not who this actor is, who the lead is in this movie. But I'm having a hard time placing it, and so I'm gonna have to look on the IMDb to figure out who actually is in this movie. And it's Jessica Alba. Jessica Alba plays the action lead in this movie. She plays a former, not a Green Beret necessarily, but like, a commando sort of, hardcore badass soldier who is, taking out terrorists in the Middle East, when she gets word that her father died in a mine, in a collapse in a mine that is on his property that he goes to a lot. Now, okay, Jessica Alba, action movie star. I'm in. I'll buy it. Sure. let's go ahead. That's fine. The title of the movie, trigger warning. Perfect. Yes. Yes. Trigger warning is a great title for a brain dead action flick with lots of, gunfire and stuff. The problem is that Jessica Alba's character doesn't fire a gun a lot, if at all. She's a knife person. She likes knives. And I feel like somebody had the idea for a title of a movie. Hey, let's call a movie Trigger Warning, and we'll own the libs, and it'll be a hardcore action movie. And then somebody else had an idea for a movie, and Jessica Alba was like, "Yeah, I would like to be in that movie," and so her name got attached, and it got greenlit. And then these two people met on the street and were talking about how one had an idea for a title of a movie, and the other had an idea for a movie. And like, well, here, you can have the title. And the other guy was like, okay, and just went ahead and took the title because he didn't have a better title. And even though in the back of his head he was like, oh, this is not a really good title for this movie, but I don't have anything better, and I would look like a jerk if I turned down using this good title for a movie, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with it. That's what, because there's nothing like somebody when the star of your when the central hero of your movie is a knife person, trigger warning's not the right title. It's you're not owning the libs. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen here. And I say owning the libs tongue in cheek. Because the bad guy in the movie is an equally a more unrecognizable Anthony Michael Hall of Brat Pack fame, and or John Hughes movie fame, I should say. And just I know that he's been unrecognizable for a very, very long time, but like it's just like now it's like, holy crap, he's totally unrecognizable. And it starts. He's the bad guy, and it's really like just to give you an idea of this movie. So Jessica Alba returns back home, and she's picked up at a train station, bus station, I don't remember which, by the local sheriff, who was clearly like a former boyfriend. And the local sheriff, they're driving around, and then all of a sudden on the radio, you hear an advertisement: vote, re-elect Senator Jonathan Swan, or whatever his name is, for he's going to protect our liberties and our rights, and he's going to show those people in Washington what for. And then Jessica Alba turns to the local sheriff and says, how's your dad's campaign going? And instantly, boom. Oh, I know who the bad guy in this movie is, because it's so ham-handed and so over the top, and like it's like, oh, okay, I've seen enough of these movies. I know exactly who the bad guy is. Yeah, this is not a good movie. Like it's just not. I had fun with it though. Like it's like, okay, sure, okay. The action, the set pieces are really interesting. Everything else going on is just so paper thin, and that it's silly. But at the same time, I really just wanted to see the bad guys die. Like I was vested enough to be like, I cannot wait to watch. Like, so there are like 4 or 5 key bad guys. There's 5 key bad guys throughout the movie, and you just want to see 5 people die. And so in that regard, it was satisfying. I'm also giving this one 2 tacos plus guac. These are 2 movies that don't work for totally different reasons. One of them was probably salvageable, the other one not, but was still fun. All right. That's all I got for you today. Next week, we've got 2 more movies to review that are coming to theaters. We've got one that I've been waiting for, Yorgos Lanthimos's follow-up to Poor Things, which is Kinds of Kindness. And then and that's getting an expanded release this weekend. And then we've also got the wide release, which is A Quiet Place Year One. That's right. So that'll be that we're gonna open with A Quiet Place Year One. But yeah, hey, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed listening to me rant about, or not rant, but chat about 3 movies here. It's real to real talk. I'm Paul Britton. Hope to see you next week. Thanks.